stand and talk to the police
Or
and enjoy that.
I
And
could
every
also
single
scream
time
someone.
I'm going to continue to preach.
I will be out here calling the cops on you because you're supposed to be at home.
Go the fuck
just
home.
Like I'm supposed to be.
Go the
No,
fuck
I'm
home.
going to preach.
Asshole.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I am.
No, you're not.
I need
then
to.
Get a fucking church, pay property taxes.
No, I need to go out to where the lost people are,
preach
right?
From your fucking
I need to go out to where the lost people are, to where the people are.
Doesn't
You're
have
in
to
your
leave you.
house, dickwad.
Well, people can
Go
hear
home.
my words.
Go
They can be
home.
convicted by the
Nobody
Holy
wants your
Spirit.
fucking words. This is the neighborhood, and you are not welcome.
That's why I need to be here. You need Jesus, man.
I love that term, think tank. Think tank. I mean, you know what a think tank is? Like, how's a think tank go, Jamie?
Yeah, you know they got cancel culture nowadays. You gotta watch what you say. It's getting real scary out here.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know if I can take the conversation here, but we might as well. It's the Rethink Tank. Looks like you had a little bit too much to think here in the Rethink Tank. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and thanks for joining me again. I got a real fun episode because we have been trapped in this echo chamber that is America, and I finally have somebody who has been eyes outside of the country while this world has just gone to hell in a handbasket. And so we're going to get a whole new perspective, and it's a good friend of mine, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce my good friend, comedian and mental genius, Tommy Pruchinski. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. How's it going?
Oh, I couldn't wait to talk to you because first, let's just hit the ground running. You have been doing comedy across the world, which is pretty insane. But that also requires you to learn you're literally doing it in different languages. Didn't you do it in Vietnamese?
No. I did comedy in Spanish in Colombia.
Okay.
In Vietnam, I just performed in English.
Okay.
If I would have stayed there for another year, I would have performed in Vietnamese.
Really?
Yeah.
So let's get to the question that I was trying to play with before we got started and I stopped. How many languages can you speak?
Spanish is the only one that I speak really well.
Okay.
Like Vietnamese, I can get by, but it's hard. It's hard.
How'd you pick that up? Because it's not like, Danilo was here the same way, and I asked him, he went to a whole new country to play soccer, and I'm like, there's no class. You're not, I learned Spanish by going to a formal class.
I mean, there are classes.
Did you do any of them, or did you?
I did. I was disappointed by it. So what I did, and this is my approach to learning a language, what I'll first do is just learn the sounds. So, for instance, in Spanish, like in English and Spanish, no is the same. It's spelled the same, right?
Right.
It's pronounced slightly different.
Right.
So in English, we say no, which is actually like it's two vowels. It's two vowel sounds. It's no. You no. Right.
Right.
In Spanish, it's just no.
Ah.
Right. So little things like that. Training your ear and your tongue. Training your ear to recognize the small sound differences.
Right.
And then training your tongue to actually produce them. So that's what I did in Vietnamese. Vietnamese is far more different than Spanish is to English. So it's even more important. So I learned the sounds, and then it's once you learn the sounds, then it's much easier to pick up words and recognize words.
That is so cool. So you're strong in Spanish. You were able to pick up some Vietnamese. Are there any others hanging under your belt now? Any notches in your belt?
I mean, I learned German in high school. When I was in Germany, like in Berlin, for instance, if you like, I go to a mall, I'm asking for directions and I'm speaking in German, but they recognize an accent, so then they just speak in English.
Oh, okay.
But I was in Frankfurt at a bar in Frankfurt, and there was this funny little exchange where I'm speaking English to the bartender and he's speaking German back. And we're just going back and forth because I can understand German,
Right.
But yeah, so German's okay, but not like I would definitely not be doing comedy in German. But I also I feel like if I lived in Germany for 6 months, I would be able to pick it up really good.
So let's talk about doing comedy in a foreign language, because I'm fascinated by the art of comedy, honestly. There's a lot of envy in watching you take on that dream, because it is a dream. So what I'm curious about is a lot of comedy is cadence, tone, play on words. How did that transition into a foreign language? I mean, now, again, let's just say, and I'm going to butcher the metaphor here, but, let's just say it's a pun or a play on words that in English. The punchline is this play on words. In Spanish or in this foreign language, are you pigeonholed to strict joke punchline? Or can you manipulate that still?
I think there's certain things you can't do, and there's certain things that open up.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like, you can make jokes about how hard it is to learn, how hard it is to speak this language. And I think a lot of it consists in that. And you can, since you're not as sophisticated in the language, you're not going to do sophisticated stuff. But yeah, I think it's almost easier in a way, because in comedy, not only is it cadence and that sort of stuff you mentioned, but a big part of it is just having a point of view.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Okay. Right.
Like all the great comedians, like there's a lot of shitty comedians, and I would consider myself one of them. Okay. Like it's not my job. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. For now.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know if it's.
Hey, you never know.
Yeah,
listen, this ain't my job right now.
Right.
I'm doing it for free.
Right,
but there's definitely dreams. That's why you should smash that subscribe and like button. You know what I'm saying?
But like, it's one thing to be able to write and deliver jokes, but you can deliver jokes and people laugh, but after the show they don't remember you because you don't have a unique point of view. So
Interesting.
Having a unique point of view is very important. And if I'm the only gringo comedian performing in Spanish, I automatically have a point of view. If I performed at a Vietnamese show where all the other comedians were performing in Vietnamese and I performed in English to a Vietnamese audience, anytime I made a joke about Vietnam, the Vietnamese language, they laughed. Anytime I veered off that track, crickets, right?
Really?
So in that sort of situation, I have a unique point of view because I'm the only, of all the other comedians, I'm the only non-Vietnamese comedian.
Right.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so not to divert too much, but you spent a lot of time in Colombia. Mm-hmm. And so I am curious, just because we were talking about kind of the perspective of this different language and you being an outsider and everything, but also now being a part of their community. And to your point about being a gringo who speaks Spanish, I mean, how familiar are you with Tom Segura?
I know him. I don't think I'm super familiar. I've listened to one of his specials. I've seen him on Rogan.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of where you'll run into him the most. But to me, he is by far like one of the funniest dudes alive. Mm-hmm. And what stinks to an ignoramus gringo like myself is he's got this game where he's just a burly, bare white guy. Mm-hmm. But his mother is some Spanish descent.
Yeah.
And so he speaks fluent, like perfect Spanish, like perfect. And just listening to how he uses it as a tool, how now he's got his own Spanish podcast in addition to his actual podcast. He's got his tour across America, but then he's got his tour to Spanish-speaking countries.
Okay.
So, and they're two different sets.
Right.
So we were going to go see him in Mexico. There was this comedy festival in Mexico, and he was the only one with two sets. He had one in Spanish, and he had his English one. And, as, again, the ignoramus gringo, I feel like I'm the outs. Like, I know that there's this whole library of Tom comedy that I can't dive into.
Right.
So what's funny is seeing how he uses it, as a comedic tool, like, people don't expect him to be able to speak Spanish. So like he'll hear people and be like, oh yeah. And then, he'll respond in their face. Like that interaction in of itself is priceless.
Yeah.
So there's this fun element that it brings, but I am curious because you're an American still. You're cultured now, but you're still part of the unholy land. And so while you're gone experiencing the world and the world's just trying to exist, us, do-gooders and police of the world are telling them that their gendered language is oppressing us. And we can't call them Latino or Latina.
Latinx.
They're Latinx. I want to know, did any of that nonsense reach the Colombian people, and did they scoff at it? Did they praise it? Do they think this is a virtuous fight, or are they just sick of Americans getting their nose in where it doesn't belong?
I mean, I was in Colombia in 2018. I don't think the woke culture had gotten to the point that has been in the past few years. It never came up.
Interesting.
At least in the circles that I was running in.
And that's probably healthier.
In Vietnam, it was much more prevalent, especially among English teachers,
really?
and the expat community. But also a lot of Vietnamese people have raised their consciousness of these issues that a lot of people care about.
They gotta hate us, right? Like,
no,
really?
No,
I'd hate us.
Yeah, no, I think that's
what's their perspective on all of this?
That's kind of an egoism to think that
they're thinking about us.
Exactly.
That's a great point.
Like, I have this conversation with so many people.
Yeah.
Oh, you lived in Vietnam. Don't they hate Americans? No, they don't.
Now,
because here's the thing. When an American thinks in Vietnam, the war, right? That's what comes up.
That's the only thing we have as a relationship.
For a Vietnamese person our age, the first thing that comes to mind when they think of America is not the war. Because they've lived maybe like during the war, in the immediate years after the war, maybe, right? But a lot of time has passed since then.
That's a great
and
point.
America is still the richest, most powerful country on earth. China's coming for it. But yeah, so
so is it because they consume like our movies and media
to a large extent?
Okay.
Yeah.
So
but it's also so much has happened since the war.
Can you fill me in on that? Like, are you saying, development in those countries that we had hand in helping, or is it that now they, like, to your point, you said they just raised their consciousness. Is it on their own autonomous,
No, I think like a 29-year-old Vietnamese person, they didn't live through the war, but they've consumed American media, some of them maybe, and there's just they're just not, they're thinking, oh, America is this big country that some of them want to move to. A lot of them have family there. It's just they're not living in the past.
Okay.
So they have a lot more reference points. Whereas the average American, the only reference point they have to Vietnam are war movies. And the
in that relationship.
And the 2 paragraphs they read about Vietnam in history class.
Right. Wow.
So it's just you
So
just
do
have more
me a
reference
favor,
points.
Because again, boots on the ground. This comes back to what before the podcast we were talking about how the majority of facts and science that you live and operate on in this world are you rely on other people and other other interpretations of those facts because you can't experience it all. You can't live it all or know it all. So fill me in on what is the streets like, what is the culture like in Vietnam, and what is missing from because again, I think there's many countries in this world that we're just totally lacking education in. So what what kind of things can we be more conscious of when it comes to somewhere like Vietnam?
I think that's a difficult question. There's so many.
I bet. There's so many. So much.
Yeah.
I need my water. I'm sitting here like drowning. Or, like
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So to better articulate it, because that was kind of jumbled. Vietnam being a major country, but I feel like a lot of countries, pick one, Turkey, Afghanistan, there's so many, Syria, Saudi Arabia, so many countries that, one, we hear on the news or we are heavily involved with, but as a populace, and I think one of the points I wanted to raise when you were saying Vietnamese people don't hate us, well, I don't hate...
To be fair, there's probably a few Vietnamese people that hate Americans, right?
Yeah, but that's everywhere, and that's just statistics. But, I hate China. I don't hate Chinese people. Mm-hmm. I have disdain for Russia, but I don't have disdain for Russian people. And so what I was thinking the road you were going to go down was the Vietnamese people with this raising of consciousness recognize that it was our CIA that faked the Gulf of Tonkin incident. It was our government that found some financial interest in faking a war and doing this thing. And it wasn't us.
I think Europeans are more likely to have an anti-American bias and to kind of be or Latin Americans be critical of the American empire and all the activities that our government has done in different countries. I think Vietnamese people are more wary of China because they have a longer history with China and they're right there.
Right, they're closer.
Right.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Interesting. So now get to double back to the heart of the question that I am trying to articulate, but it's really hard. So again, like all these countries we're heavily involved in, but we're very ignorant to the country, the culture, what our relationship, why we're bombing them, all of this. And so what are some things that boots on the ground you can educate, briefly on like things of Vietnamese culture that we're ignorant to that could kind of liberate us from that ignorance, or things that, I went out with this girl who's Sicilian, but her accent's a little too Russian, so I'm thinking she's a part of the KGB and she's going to kill me. But she's obsessed with Russian literature, and, that's just so random and everything else, but she's like, she went on this whole escapade. You get so much more value in this type of style of writing. The stories are very different, and what she gets from them. What type of things could you provoke us to seek out? Is there any kind of movies, documentaries, readings, books, or what did you pick up on your experience that you could educate us on with Vietnam? I
think a few things that Vietnam does really well that Americans could work on. Number one is families. Like their families are much tighter.
Can we agree?
From what I've seen.
And don't lose your other points, but I really want to address that one. My parents roll their eyes when I say China does that right. The familial lifestyle. I look at my grandmother. Not Jewish, and I'm going to say that every time, not Jewish, but she hid from Nazis for 10 years in Greece. Mm-hmm. She had to hide in hollowed out trees, and I could go on forever about stories because they weren't just killing Jews, they were killing everybody. Mm-hmm. And so she spent 10 years hiding in Greece. Her father's in America, has no idea if she's dead or alive, all that stuff. Now she's at the end of her road. She has dementia, and the tough part is where it's gotten so bad now, she really doesn't even know who she is or where she's at. Mm-hmm. But before that, before COVID and everything, if we were to go to 2020, she's in jail now. The front half of her life was hell, and now she's in jail for the end until it's over. Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of disdain for my parents. I need to emphasize though, I see how it would have been an impossible or strain to bring her in our home and try to take care of her. Because the reason she's in a nursing home, to begin with, why we put her there, was because she was just calling the police all the time. And they're like, ma'am, if you keep calling us, we're going to have to arrest you. Yeah. And she just was losing it, so she couldn't live on her own. Mm-hmm. And my mom's like, we can't be home all the time. How's she going to live by herself? So you justify it. You make your excuses. But then you can't help but sit back and go, I got to imagine her dementia was exacerbated by going to 2 or 3 different nursing homes, by not knowing where her family is. She thinks her husband's alive and just left her to get. So there's my biggest struggle right now, it currently at this period of my life, is that's what I so desperately want us to go back to. I feel like we need. But then also, is there an ability to have 2 parents who work or that are running a life and kids that aren't necessarily home anymore, they're out of the nest, and still have a grandma at home who really shouldn't be on her own at any time? So I don't know. That's my long-winded, like, that really hit a chord because I feel like we so miss that. And that's one of like the most important things of this life.
Yeah. I mean, America's the most individualistic country in the world. Like, there's
great point.
That's been, and there's benefits to that, you know. So everything comes with trade-offs. That's
a great point. So what did you learn from that experience when it comes to the familial household? Like, what can we do better aside from my example?
Like, I've come home and I've spent a few months back home, which has been nice. And I think like we have to be more intentional about building those ties. Whereas I love that in Vietnam or some other countries where it's just, that's just the way you're raised. Right. So it's a cultural thing. Yeah. And so you're going to find a way to make grandma living at home work because that's the way. Yeah. Yeah, we need to get back to that. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to divert us too much. So you had a couple things that us Americans could take away from Vietnam. Number 1 was the family, and number 2, they just have a better food culture. Yeah, and it's
cleaner. Cleaner, is that why, or just better?
They eat a lot. They'll like snack throughout the day. And like when Vietnamese people eat, it's like they're eating and with each other, you know, they're much less likely to like grab something and just snack on the go.
Is it a community like style?
Yeah. For instance, like KFC and Pizza Hut do really well in Vietnam
because it's a sharing.
Because it's a shared thing.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And even McDonald's, they sell fried chicken because that's something you share, right?
Wow.
So, I mean,
so who had better fried chicken? Damn it! Bring it. Tell us, Americans. You know that's what we care about.
McDonald's fried chicken was not good.
Not as good as those nuggets, huh?
Yeah. No. But I don't have statistics on this, but I would imagine that McDonald's sells a lot less hamburgers in Vietnam versus like proportionally they sell more things that you can share.
Interesting. So I went to Oman and they brought out this giant plate of rice and chicken and everybody just sat around and you ate with your hands. And, you know, there's something to that. I think I was very lucky, you know, I think, right? A lot of my ability to think either irrationally or rationally, but outside of the box and just play with new ideas and wrestle with new theories, I heavily attribute to, as much as I didn't like it oftentimes, we had dinner every day, and we still do it now. Now that I'm home and my sister's home, every time when everybody's at home, we eat dinner together, and there's my dad going, you know, if we came across an island of horse people, and they looked like horses, and they talked like us, they were, everything was like humans, but they looked like horses, and they stood on 2 feet, but they were really dumb. They were just incredibly, incredibly dumb, like monkeys. What philosophical or moral, what do we morally owe them? Do we need to? Do we have to go there and educate them? Do we just leave them be and let them reside on their own? Do we accept them into the culture and try to, whatever the case may be? And that's just so random and so like bizarre. And and I think that only comes from this communal Like, we're sitting down and we're having time, and you're going to talk about your day, and, I'm going to say something that irritates you, and that's going to provoke a debate of some kind. Or I just feel like there's so much value in that, and it's kind of what, the pursuit of the Rethink Tank is also, is just have conversations with people who are different than you, and we lose that, man. I mean, how many people are just getting meatballs out of a window? They're just like, give me my meat. And then they just drive off. And they're like, meat. And then they're like, you know what? You should get a vaccine. And we'll give you a free French fry and a cheeseburger. And they're like, God, dude, you almost had me. But with the cheeseburger, go ahead. Our obsession. And you've really highlighted how most of our dining is very individualized, even if it's like a date.
Yeah, like whenever we go out to eat in Vietnam, even with just foreigners, because it's just the culture, like you order a bunch of dishes and share and then split the bill, or somebody pays, whatever.
Sure, right. So we talked about languages and everything, and I want to get to what you're currently doing. But first, to kind of pave the way there, Tommy was our genius at school. He was our valedictorian, but our world got so soft.
We don't know that.
Our world got so soft. Tommy wasn't allowed to be announced as the valedictorian because it would have hurt some softies' feelings. So, Tommy, give us just like a quick rundown, because you've traveled so much. You've been so involved just in so many different realms. After kicking ass at high school and taking the gold, what was that trip like for you? Where did it take you and lead you to here?
Oh,
I know it's long, so boil it down.
Complicated question. Well, I went to college, and
where'd you go?
I went to Vanderbilt.
There you go.
And I wanted to, very early in college, I realized I wanted to kind of work with startups.
Okay.
Like small, scrappy companies.
What provoked that interest?
I think just the admiration of entrepreneurs.
Hell yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just like, creating something new for the world, as opposed to just like,
pushing something that's already there.
Yeah. So I spoke with a lot of entrepreneurs my first year, and they said, it really doesn't matter what you study. Just study something you like. And what's important is that you build skills.
Okay.
Like real skills that you're probably not going to learn in the classroom.
Yeah.
So I did internships and this and that. And I my senior year I worked with a company called Everly. They sell like little drink packets that you mix to flavor water.
Oh, cool.
And it's like no sugar, no yada yada yada.
Danilo, you hear that?
And then I heard I learned there's people doing digital marketing and they can kind of work wherever, whenever. And I thought that was really cool. So that's what I got into.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what took you then across to different countries?
So I got a job after college, working with a company that made supplements and sold on Amazon.
Okay.
And they flew everyone out to Vietnam because they can basically set up like a temporary office there for very cheap.
Sure.
So they flew everyone out, and then.
So how long were you there for?
I was there for 3-4 months, and then went to Thailand for a few months, and then.
How was that?
Yeah,
I hear
good.
That's heaven.
Thailand's cool.
Just because the American dollar is stretched so far. Is that true?
I mean, that's true. A lot of places.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true in Vietnam.
But I hear that, and tell me if this is true or not, because this is really the only reason I've been in a hurry to get there, or Taiwan. Maybe it is Taiwan that I'm thinking of. But I hear that, no, it was Thailand, that you can just buy like luxurious suites, just live like a king for pretty cheap.
I mean, hotels in America are very expensive.
Stupid expensive.
Yeah, like a Motel 6 or a Motel 8 on the side of the highway is going to be like, $60.
Easily.
You can get a really nice place in Thailand, Vietnam, Colombia for $60.
Really?
$60 a night. Yeah, really nice.
Wow. So aside, and that's what I was thinking of is, you know, you get these luxurious spots and everything, but what about the food and everything? That's got to be
Oh, the food's
really
great.
cheap.
Food's great.
And it's higher
cheap.
quality, I think.
Yeah. But I mean, there's also like, it's hit or miss. Like there's lower safety or cleanliness standards. So you can get a bad one and spend the next day on the toilet.
How many times have you had that run in?
Actually, the only times I've ever gotten food poisoning were my own doing. So
Yeah, tell me
one time I was at this barbecue restaurant where you barbecue they bring out a little grill and you put the meat on there and you cook it yourself. And I didn't cook the pork long enough. And so the next day, which happened to be the Trump-Clinton election, I was between the bed and the toilet watching this unfold.
We all were.
Yeah.
You had food poisoning. We had community poisoning.
Yes.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
So then you go to Thailand. So where do you go from there?
I was dating a German girl, so I went to, and some of my colleagues spent the summer in Europe, so then I spent a summer in Europe. Well, after coming home and then going to Europe, and then I went to South America, and then back to Asia, and now back here. So
Wow.
been a lot of places.
So, wow. Okay. And so,
And I work 100% online, remote since graduating.
right.
So, yeah, like, I mean, the reason I got into digital marketing was so that I can do that.
And you can't beat that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to where were you when COVID hit?
I was in Vietnam. So I was in Bali during the Lunar New Year. That most people know it as Chinese New Year, but a lot of cultures in Asia celebrate the Lunar New Year, so it's not just Chinese New Year, right?
Okay.
If you go to Vietnam, don't call it Chinese New Year, okay? They call it Tet, so that's it. But it's the Lunar New Year, right?
Okay.
So I was in Bali during that holiday, and my mom had called me, and saying like, hey, there's this virus going around. Make sure that you get a mask, wash your hands, stay away from people. And I was like, my mom's always worried about everything, it's fine. But yeah, and then, a month, 2 months later, shit hit the fan.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So what was that like? Because this is what I really want to compare notes on, because we experienced something so bizarre. And when it first happened, I don't care what picture they tried to paint after the fact, because that's kind of how they operate.
Yeah.
People don't retain the experience they lived very well. And so, and I think that's just the human flaw of memories, that like it's so easy to manipulate
Right.
after the fact.
Sure.
But I bring it up on the podcast all the time that all the morons have goldfish syndrome, that like they just, whatever is shiny in front of their face at the moment, that's the only thing that operates on their mind. And what we experienced here, and again, I don't care what anybody tries to paint the picture as, it was honestly like 9/11. When all the schools were shut down, you only could go to the grocery store and not your local market, because screw them, they'll get you sick.
Yeah.
But you could go to Giant Eagle
Yeah.
anywhere. They're open because they're essential and we care about you. And we all got behind it. Everybody was like, we're on the same team. There was none of this, but it also didn't become a political tool yet.
Yeah.
At the moment, it was just a focus on saving lives. We're going to get through this. 10 days to flatten the curve, and we'll get through this. And it so quickly became this political weapon that just divided everybody, and you had to pick a team. And so, just to give you an example, I brought it up here once before, but like I went to the first Buckeyes game against Oregon this year, and I'm sitting there. I get to my seat, and there's this lady, and she's got her stuff on my seat, and she's like, oh, this seat's taken by my water bottle. And I'm like, well, your water bottle better cheer loud. And she's like, ah, she's touching me. She's pretty much licking my earlobe. And then we talked for 15 minutes. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to a Buckeyes game,
I
but
have.
you sit in people's laps. Those
Yeah.
benches are so tight.
Right.
And so this woman's on top of me the whole time, laughing, touching me. Then 15 minutes into the game, we have the Ohio State Medical School propaganda. It was just a video of all the perfect talking points that and if they get the swirly eyes and they're like, oh yeah. And I got the vaccine, dude. So I'm sitting there and I just zone out. It's on the screen. I don't even look at it. I'm just going like this. And I could see that she kind of noticed. Then at the last 30 seconds, it was just all the punchlines that they love repeating. So I rolled my eyes. She quickly grabs her mask, throws on sunglasses, grabs her husband. He's an anti-vaxxer. These people can't operate in a world
She said
where...
that to you?
She said it to her husband.
About
me.
Why?
Because I rolled my eyes at this freaking
okay.
video, and
Okay.
these people, their cognitive dissonance, they cannot compute a world where somebody got this vaccine and isn't head over heels, yeah, thank you for the video, get the vaccine. So, to me, this is an easily weaponized tool because everybody thinks so binary. There's no gray area. There's no balancing of ideas of I got your juice. The government issued juice that you want to make required every year. I did it.
Yeah.
But I'm also not a fan of forcing people to do it and not allowing you to go roll at ju-jitsu because of it. I gotta believe the fat turd getting the meatballs out of the windows that sits there but got the juice, and then the Joe Rogans that go roll every Sunday and flush their system of their toxins. If I had to choose who's probably better suited, especially when you're 20-something, but if you think like that or you talk like that, you're the enemy. You're the enemy. And it's how did we get to this point? So I know it was very long-winded, but I wanted to kind of paint a frame of what we experienced here. I mean, they were rolling out the National Guard. Tanks were rolling through, dude, on the trains. The trains were bringing through tanks to all the major cities. And you're like,
When
what
was
is
this?
This was right when it started.
Okay.
So, again, say what you want about QAnon people, but this is the first time this has ever happened in life ever. That everything's been shut down and you could see, whoa, they got the power to do this. And at the same time, you've got people talking out of both sides of their mouth. You can't get complete information. It's clearly being manipulated. 1 week, Fauci man goes, masks don't do nothing. And then literally 2 weeks later, he's like, well, I just said that because we didn't know we would have enough masks. And it's
they flub the communication.
Dude, so what you're admitting to me is that you aren't telling me the facts that I can operate on and make my own decision. You're telling me what you need to tell me to get the reaction or result you want from me.
Right.
I can't trust you. Then you're rolling out tanks, like I said. There was something going on in this world. Everybody, so I could see how people are like, well, Trump's going to go arrest all the people eating kids. It's that is obviously untethered, but you could see how we get there.
I can see how the officials miscommunicate, and that breeds mistrust. Now,
well said.
To then, that's understandable. I don't agree with any conclusions you make based QAnon and everything like that.
Right.
That's also yo. But,
I agree.
Yeah.
I want to make that clear. I
Yeah.
definitely agree. But now I want to know what what was it like how you experienced in comparison?
So number one, in Vietnam, they acted very quickly. They shut down the borders. They closed schools very quickly.
So they acted racist real fast. Because remember, shutting down the borders was racist, but only when the orange guy did it. But so they acted racist right away.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, countries in Asia have experienced epidemics more frequently than we have here.
Okay.
So they're
used to it. It wasn't an uncommon thing.
Right.
Okay.
So they acted quickly, and the actions they took were good. It was like a soft lockdown for a month and a half, where restaurants, cafes, schools are closed, but you can order food in, yeah, you can order like dine-in restaurants are closed, but you can order food and they'll deliver food.
Oh, nice.
That was still happening. You can go to grocery stores. Yeah, little mom and pop shops. I don't think were operating. I don't think in the beginning though it was much more relaxed.
Okay.
Versus what happened this year. So in 2020, Vietnam was locked down for about a month and a half, and then things opened up. And
really? So,
and then,
question: when you were in communication with like your mom or your family back home, were there times where we were locked down and you were just like, shit's back to normal?
For most of 2020.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so keep going.
Most of 2020, life was totally normal in Vietnam. Like,
so what changed in 2021?
I'm not an expert on this, so I will just say what the official narrative is.
Yeah.
The Delta variant came, and it just spread a lot more. So all the actions that the Vietnamese government had taken in 2020 just weren't enough to stop the Delta variant.
Ah, okay.
So then things locked down intensely.
Really?
Very intensely. To the point where this would never fly in America.
Give me an idea of what it kind of looked like.
Okay, so for 2 weeks.
And were you there experiencing it?
I was there.
Okay.
This was like the very end of my stay.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks, there was a fence on two sides. So about 500 feet on my street that I was living in. There was fences on both sides, so I couldn't leave. You can get food delivered to the fence.
Right.
You couldn't leave the fence. For 3 or 4 months, you couldn't go to a park.
Seriously?
You couldn't go to a park. Which that was one thing where I'm like, this is messed up.
It's not healthy.
No,
for
it
what
makes
we're trying to
no
combat.
sense. Now, I'm not in a position of power. I don't have to deal with population control. So,
sure.
It is like leaders have to make decisions. I disagree strongly with that decision. And that was one of the factors that contributed to me leaving.
Okay.
Like, you can't go to a park.
That's insane.
That's messed up.
Right.
And then I left on a Friday. The Monday after I left, they locked down more, where you can't even go to a grocery store. If you need food, you have to contact the military. The military will deliver food.
No way.
Yeah. So
is that still going on?
No.
Oh,
no.
okay,
They're pretty much open. They're an opening.
Wow.
But yeah, so like I get why like you close mom and pop shops, because it's about control, and not in a nefarious way, but in like a public health way. Like when you just open the big stores, it's a lot easier to manage.
That's fair. That's fair. But we got to imagine. So just on the other side to this coin is, at our courthouse, we put a stay on evictions, and that's great. You don't want to be throwing people out on the street during this type of. But now you've got people whose livelihoods were reliant on that payment,
right? And
the government isn't subsidizing it,
right?
They're not, and so
there's winners and losers,
exactly. So while one is maybe even thriving, you are definitely suffocating another.
Sure. And you shouldn't dismiss that. Like, I'm not saying what the decision
and I'm not
should
saying
be,
you were.
but
You
there are
definitely
winners and losers, and you shouldn't say no. There's no losers, right? There are losers, and we should be aware of that. But one thing, like in Vietnam, the population is much more willing to accept whatever the government does. So, like closing down parks.
Is it because they don't have an option?
They
don't have a constitution.
I mean, I think in much of the developing world, as long as living standards are raising consistently, then you're willing to put up with things.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
that definitely does.
as long as the living standards are rising, you don't really care who's the leader of the country.
See, but I want to touch back on one of the points you raised of like, not everybody's going to be a winner. And that's, again, utilitarianism. That's just the thing called life. But I think what leaves a sour taste in Americans' mouths is, in this country, for whatever reason, the people who always win are always corporate America. It's never the people, right? They got us at each other's throats. Blue, red, and it's because of you I didn't get my $200 stimulus check. And then you still paid half of your paycheck to taxes that bought out Boeing planes. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, did the toilet paper escapade ever get to you? You ever hear about the nonsense we had to deal with here?
I mean, I heard about it, but in Vietnam,
they got the pish.
They use the
hose,
the bum guns. Yeah, which is
that wait? What do they call
better.
It? When in the Middle East, they call it a pish because it goes pish.
In English, you say bum gun. I don't know
Really?
know what the Vietnamese term is for it. And whenever I want to make a big caveat here, right? I don't want to, like, I've said a lot of things what I think Vietnamese people might say or think or feel. I'm not Vietnamese, right? So, like, this is my own interpretation, and I may be way off. So I just want to.
But again,
put that
that's
out.
all we have.
I don't want to speak on behalf of Vietnamese people.
No, and you're not.
Or,
you're speaking on your experiences, and that's something they can't take away from you either. Whatever they experience, they say, no, this is how I perceive it. Well, this is what it was like for an American to live this life.
Yeah, but like, for instance, one time I went with a friend. We were riding our bikes around, and we went toward a park. We didn't go in the park. We went toward it, and some Vietnamese people basically told us, like, hey, you got to go. Like, we're not going in. And then some Vietnamese people walked in. They didn't say anything.
Really?
That is what it is. Now, I understand.
So what do you take from that experience?
I think,
was it because you were white?
I think to a large extent. I think people are much more xenophobic during a pandemic.
Sure.
And I think that's understandable.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I think a lot of white people in Vietnam got really defensive, and like, people said that they weren't admitted entry into restaurants and stuff. That never happened to me.
Okay.
No, like, the only thing I experience is if I'm not wearing a mask, maybe Vietnamese person, if they see a person that is clearly a foreigner, they're going to be more likely, like, hey.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
But
people would tell you to put a mask on.
Because when you see someone that is clearly a foreigner,
I think they might not know.
No. It just hits your head like, oh, yeah, we're living in a pandemic. Like, hey. Whereas if you see a Vietnamese person, you might, like.
You're back. It's home. It's home.
Yeah,
you don't think about it.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did you get out of there? Because when we were here, we were talking, before the podcast, we were talking about how, we got phones and everything, technology, vehicular technology, everything is so advanced. We're the most connected we've ever been. But then you raised the point, you were like, well, but we're not. We're actually going the opposite direction. We're getting less connected. Yeah. Social media is dividing us, but even more so, you hammered on the physical, geographical reality that planes aren't, you are not traveling as much as you used to.
It's not as easy to travel.
So how'd you get out? How'd you get back? What was that experience like? Did America make it a pain in the ass getting back in here?
No, nothing. I mean, I had to get a COVID test. I had to, there was a curfew at the time where nobody could be on the streets after 6.
Oh, wow.
So I had to get a ride to the airport before 6. And because the driver had to be off the streets before 6, I had to get there by 5 so he can get back home. My flight wasn't until 11, so I was there very, very early. There was nothing open at the airport. Nothing.
So you're there for 5 hours, can't get a water.
Yeah, I mean, I brought food, I brought water, no problem, but I was there for it was just it was eerie. Because
what's their security like compared to America? I think a lot of our security is a 9/11 facade. We're not really. It's all a show, but for the reality of it, there's not much security there compared to what they're projecting. is the security there really? Because again, I wouldn't be able to. The reason I asked, I wouldn't be able to bring a bottle of water in. They would say, "Oh, you're gonna throw that away? That's gonna blow up."
No, I mean, I'm not bringing it to the terminal. I just brought water like to the outside of the airport.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they're the same way that they wouldn't have let you bring water into the terminal as well.
I think so.
Interesting. How is it with like, shoes and everything? You got to take your shoes off, your belt off, all that stuff, or
I don't think you have to take your shoes off on domestic travel.
Okay.
But yeah,
coming here,
yeah,
it was the same.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And beside the hiccup of having to get there super early, was it really difficult finding flights and
It was. You have to plan more in advance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long ago how far ahead did you have to start that move?
I mean, I did like 3 weeks.
Okay.
3 weeks in advance, which isn't crazy, but like you can't just be like, oh, it's 3 hours before my flight, I gotta call an Uber. Like, you can't do that. You have to plan things in advance.
So was it the COVID protocol that kind of pushed you out a little bit, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there was a variety of factors.
Right.
Like I got a new job working with a Canadian company, so it just made sense to be in time zones over here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had just gotten like kind of burnt out from the like heavy lockdown. Like I was barely able to see friends for months.
That's not it.
And like I had cool people in the building I was living with that I grew closer to.
Oh, good.
But yeah, it got tiring.
So you're back
And
now.
I hadn't been home for 2 years. I'm like, yeah, I should go home.
Yeah, see family and, get back to the unholy land. I got to ask, though, as we wrap up here. So you're at a new place now. What is it called again?
The company I work for, it's called Link.
Link.
Lingq.
Okay, and it's language learning software.
Yeah.
It's
like Duolingo, except way better.
So when did you start with them? Were you in Vietnam when you started with them, or was that something
Yeah.
that you started when you came here to America?
Yeah, no, I started in beginning of August, and then I left Vietnam in mid-August.
Okay, and so can you kind of give us an idea of, because you were saying, we were talking about before the podcast how I've definitely struggled with learning foreign language, and it's also interesting, every class that I've been in, everyone had a different approach. You took a Vietnamese class, and it disappointed you. And so what is the approach that Link takes that can that you think may bridge that gap that like Rosetta Stone doesn't?
Yeah, so with Link, you're basically reading and listening to actual content.
Okay.
As opposed to just like drilling like vocab,
Right.
and doing like silly exercises. You can like do flashcards and stuff with Link, but the flashcards are like, for instance, you're gonna read a story in Spanish, and then if you see a word you don't know, you click on it, and then you get the meaning, and then you save all the words that you're learning.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So you're learning words in context, which
You need to be able to use it.
And you can basically like import anything across the web into Link to study it.
I'm going to be honest with you. There were times where, I got a C in my Spanish course in college, and then I go to Mexico for spring break, and I left that 2-week trip with a further understanding of Spanish than I did when I left the course. Now, I need to emphasize that I don't think that 2 weeks would have been anywhere near as fruitful if I didn't have the foundation going into it, obviously.
Yeah.
But to me, it was like just ordering your food, gracias, while just interacting with a person as you're just trying to do the basics allows you to develop. Now you're like, I'm going to get flowery with this. And you develop it more, and you learn context. Because like you had even mentioned earlier, like there's words that you'll use that it really depends on tone, but also context of the situation. And it can mean something completely different. And you're only going to learn that by watching and dealing with somebody else as they do that. So I don't know. I think that's a really great approach.
Yeah, I think when you have a good experience with something, it makes you much more interested in diving deeper in this topic, in anything. And if you have a bad experience for whatever reason in a classroom or outside of a classroom, I don't want to do that. So I think if you're having fun in Mexico, then it's like, oh, then it opens up your eyes, like, oh,
right.
now I see the value of learning Spanish. Whereas in a classroom, you might be like, you're just doing it for work, and there's like a background of anxiety, and like that's not good.
Right. And honestly, it has to be a virtue or path that you take based on like your want to do.
You need a motivation. Yeah.
Because
whether that motivation, I mean, getting a good grade can be a motivation.
It is. It is certainly a motivation.
Right.
But I feel like that is to your point of like fine. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of people that took a foreign language course, super excelled, loved it.
Yeah.
But I guess, you know what? No, I'm going to retract my statement because I think I'm now just projecting myself on other people. Because I was going to say, I feel like regardless of that one person, maybe they're finding their enjoyment because they're succeeding, and that's truthfully it. But like, I really think if you're doing it for a grade, you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. Like you might, because you're succeeding in it, you get good feedback, then you're like, okay, like I like this. Or at the same time, it might be like you find something about that language that just interests you. So then you're much more motivated, and that motivation helps you succeed. So I think it goes both ways. But I think finding something about the language that interests you is key. And if you're in a class and you don't find that thing that interests you, you're just doing it for, because you have to, you're going to be very unlikely to like, really, really succeed with it.
That's a great point. So I got one last wrapping up question for you. So you had left and you got to experience all these different places, different people. Some of the highlights were that they were more communal, familial, that there was this relationship, and you were able to find the fruits in that. Then you come back here and we're as divided as we've ever been. I think everybody's volatile. We've lost our connection to just the human man. We're no longer communal. We're advantageous against each other. Anyway, my question to you is this: what was that like going from these places where family was first, we ate and dined together, community was everything, and it seemed like a more of an acceptance of different people and different ideas, to then come here? What was that experience like? And if you could give one piece of advice on how you think we could bridge that gap moving forward, what would you suggest?
Okay, that's a difficult question. So, can you repeat it?
Yes. So when it comes to this communal, you had a communal relationship, and it seemed like not only was it praised and prized with high value, but the fruits of it were also very valuable, and it was shown throughout you saw those advantages throughout the community. Then you come back to America, where you had left. Honestly, dude, yeah, we had Barack Obama's president. Maybe half this country didn't really like it. I know we're telling our people that Trump was backlash after having a black president. It's not the world I experienced. I thought we had a well-spoken man, and yes, did it feel like he was only talking to half the country sometimes? Maybe, but he definitely was well-spoken and bridged the gap. There was a community. Even with the clown Bush and Clinton, all the people that preceded it, it feels like right now we're as divided as it's ever been, where I don't need to, unless you're on my same page with masks and vaccines, if you're not on the same page with the police, and then you need to die. I don't even want you to exist. Yeah. This has gotten so volatile. You know what, dude? When COVID first hit, and I'm watching these people fight for a roll of toilet paper, I was sitting there going, this is 15 days after flattening the curve. So we were like, oh, is this not going away? And I'm like, I remember saying, does nobody miss smiling at somebody at the grocery store? Nobody misses that. Now we're 2 years into this. Does nobody miss smiles from a stranger? Like, we are social animals. We need that. If you put a baby in a corner, it dies. So we need this. And yet we are not only the most removed from it, but that's what we strive for now, is like, I'm cutting ties left and right because people don't even want to go back to what I think made me what I am. Having dinner with my family, people don't even want to go to Thanksgiving dinner because Uncle Bob voted for the wrong guy. So what is it like going from this place where, yeah, maybe they took a lockdown a little too far or this, that, but the community was still there. There was this element of, like you said, I register foreigners because there's not many of them, and these are my people. And then you come here and it's like, we all look the same, but we all hate each other. And, we all go to the same schools, eat at the same places. The people who are affecting our world, the politicians, we're still negatively affected by the same people, but yet we look at our neighbors. They're the enemy. They're the reason. So what is that experience like going from there to here? And if there's something that you could take from that and give a piece of advice to kind of conquer this issue, what might that be?
Well, to start, so the situation I immediately came from was very isolated.
Okay.
Like I was very isolated when I was in Vietnam for the last few months. Okay. And then I came back here, so it was nice just to be able to go to a Mexican restaurant with friends and family and and in terms of the political polarization and everything being so politicized and even in my family, people can't have conversations because they get too heated, and it's just let's just not talk, okay? Instead of talking through things, right. let's just not talk. Where it's how do we get past that? How do we get over that? I'm not very optimistic about that. I don't think.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like. I mean, I think the way we get over that is to just submit to who's ever in power and just let them which is very not American,
Right, right.
And the thing is
sounds pretty Vietnamese of you.
the thing is I think and I'm gonna go out on a limb here, okay?
Yeah, please.
The Americans cannot influence Chinese media, but Chinese media can influence American media.
Like TikTok.
Okay, sure. So there's I don't think these divisions are going to be healed.
Do you think it'll be our downfall? Which
think
is
it
being
is.
manufactured by them anyway?
I think when Nixon went to China, he was the first American president to talk with Chinese communist leaders. They thought, okay, if we start trading with China and they become richer, their government is going to become more like ours. But in fact, the opposite has happened. Wow. Western governments have become more like Chinese communist governments in terms of,
So I think that's the most likely because that's the strongest path we're going down. Because I just want to end on a hopeful note because that's the only passion that's fueling me is the fear of that's the most likely result. I think what's funny is China's growth and major expansion has been off the backs of freedom and individuality's creative innovation. Creativity and innovation only comes from, in my opinion, allowing people to be free and individual. And so while the rest of the world subscribed to our trademark patent office and we all share a global one, China refuses to. And so you watch this boom in the last 20 years, 30 years, where they are innovating and piggybacking off of our creativity. I think there's a stalemate, though. That world can only keep propelling off of the backs of a creative free world. So if we die, there has to be a halt in that exponential growth they're experiencing. And
if the American consumer, China's growth has depended on the American consumer market.
Yeah, right.
That's not going anywhere.
That's true. That's true.
That's not going anywhere.
I want to hope that if we can, and you're going to be annoying. You're going to be the annoying sibling. You're going to be the person that really makes your aunt uncomfortable. But we can no longer comfortably sweep the dust under the rug. Now we've got a giant pile in the middle of our room, and we can't get it. We either need to have the uncomfortable conversation or accept that we will crumble like a house of cards. And so it makes us uncomfortable, but we got to be able to have a conversation about vaccine passports. No matter how passionately fueled you are for them, and I may be against them, we need to have a conversation in that you may not leave and agree, but we need to understand the other side. Because right now, the ignorance, lacking understanding of the other allows us to project all the evils on them, right? That's what Hitler did with the Jews. If you were talking to it, we keep talking about this with racism on the podcast. I had a friend, she went to my law school, and she was like, well, we need to just eliminate, you shouldn't be allowed to say any of these things. And I'm like, but you should want to have a world where this kid comes home, he's so exposed and he's so open to people and experiences that, yes, he still comes home to a dad that says, man, those Chinese people are evil. But then he goes to school and he meets a Chinese kid. And then he goes to work. He gets older. He goes to college. And then he goes, wait. But he's like really nice. And he took me to meet his family. His family was great to me. Maybe dad's the ignorant one. And the only way you have that liberation is by exposure and experience. And so if you keep shutting yourself off from these experiences because they make you uncomfortable or they get you emotionally riled up, the house of cards is going to fall. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but it's like, yeah, I think people, 50 years ago, there was just one news guy telling the news, right? And now we have a bunch of different, outlets that people are getting different skews on. So
Sure.
they're living in totally different worlds. And I don't know.
That's a great point. Wow. You know what's funny is I listen to Joe Rogan a lot, and he always goes, well, this is why the media is doing its last-ditch effort to, they're clearly lying, everything else. The manipulation is an all-time high because they're watching what they had a monopoly on for so many years fall out of their fingers. And he thinks it's virtuous that, hey, you're going to be out of your echo chamber. We're going to have all these little independent people, and you can find what best fits you. But you know what? Now I'm seeing another side to that same coin.
Yeah, it's good and bad.
That it will isolate us even more.
Not that it's gonna. It
is.
It is.
Damn.
Yeah. Like, because someone will get the same, piece of it. Someone will hear about the same story, but in different lenses, and they're just they're totally operating under different premises.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, I think there are ways that we can build more of a common ground. But it's complicated.
Wow.
Yeah. I think there are ways. I'm pretty pessimistic about things.
No, but again, that's definitely the more likely road we're marching down right now.
And I personally think Americans they think freedom is everything, and the fact of the matter is freedom is not everything. Freedom is important, right?
Right.
But for instance, I had a friend who lived in the same building as me in the last few months I was in Vietnam, and she's from Singapore. And I was like, "Oh, Singapore, isn't it true that you can't chew gum in Singapore? What's up with that?"
You can't?
No, you can't chew gum. And an American hears that and they're like, "Oh, that's oppressive. You can't chew gum? Like, what?" And from her perspective, it is like, if you're raised in a society where you can chew gum, and then you go to a society where you can't chew gum, you feel that someone's taken away your freedom. Whereas if you're raised in a world where you can't chew gum, it's not oppressive. That's just the way it is. Like, it's not a matter of like, yeah, it's not a right. It's just like, yeah, this is what we do. So, yeah, I think, and another thing, like, I mean, this pandemic is still going on, right? 2 years, we're 2 years into it. And I know the U.S. is sending a lot of vaccines elsewhere. I think that should have been more of a priority because there are going to be a percentage of Americans who just won't take the vaccine, right?
Right.
So instead of wasting resources on pushing the vaccine on those people, send the vaccine to people that around the world that actually do really want to take it.
Yeah.
And that will help end this pandemic quicker than,
wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow. And so again, we're living in a society that's choosing it's propaganda pushing over actually fighting the problem. Because again, I feel like what you just raised was if the goal was to fight the global problem.
Yeah, because it is a global problem. Like
right.
The pandemic, like if 100% of Americans are vaccinated, but 10% of Canadians aren't, a Canadian comes to America and then it starts up again.
Right.
So
wow. Do you have any knowledge? Because I gotta let you go, but do you have any knowledge about how open the rest of the world is?
Going.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right. I feel bad.
No, it's fine.
Stealing you for, but do you know how much? How about this? How free, to your understanding, is the rest of the world right now? Because it feels like my dad just went to. I'm not gonna say where he went, but he went to a couple Middle Eastern countries because he does engineer. He's an engineer, and they are doing nuclear sensors at the borders of these countries. Mm-hmm. And
that's intense.
It's pretty wild. Just hearing his stories, it is pretty wild. My dad, one of his stories was they have to drive on the side of a mountain. So it's this one road along the side of a giant mountain, and of course my dad was dumb enough to tell my mom this before he left, so she would have a heart attack. But apparently one of the Jeeps rolled off the side of the mountain like 3 weeks before they got there, and they were all clearly dead because this thing is a massive mountain, like a Colorado or Montana mountain, not these hills we have in Ohio.
Yeah.
And they're going down the one road, and there was like every few miles, because people need to take a break, whatever, there's like these pullovers, and they're further out but still along the ridge, so it's not like you're further in on the mountain, you're still on the edge. So the guy's driving, my dad falls asleep in the back, and they got a car full of people. My dad's also 6'4", like 300 pounds. He's a big dude. He's sitting in the back, and they go to take a break. My dad's been asleep this whole time, so he doesn't know they're going to take a break, and they just whip it into the spot. At the moment my dad wakes up, this thing to him is going over the edge. Like he just right angle turned right over the edge, and my dad's just like, I felt like a child. I screamed. I just, and like all these grown-ass men are laughing at him because he was screaming. But anyway, I brought up just this anecdotal story because, he's traveling, and this was just a couple weeks ago, and he's doing business again. Yeah. Now, is it a private contract with the government, so maybe they get some benefit there? Maybe, but it feels like, things are open, you could go do stuff, just people aren't. But then when you go like, hey, you know what? Actually, let's go to that comedy show in Mexico, in Cancun, you learn, oh, wait, no, like there aren't really flights. Like this isn't what it used to be. We have this perception of like, no, travel and things are opening up globally. But the reality is it doesn't seem like it is. Is that what do you think?
It is opening up.
Okay.
It's just nowhere near how easy it was in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man. So
like in Vietnam, you can go to Vietnam, you can travel to Vietnam, but you have to stay
in designated areas?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that is interesting. We have a lady at work.
Which for me is just not the type of travel that I would want to do.
Yeah, just be stuck in a locale.
I mean, it's like people do that, and that's fine. Just not for me.
Well, especially if you've already experienced. So it's like, I don't want to be trapped in a place I've been before.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, there was a lady at work, she went to Egypt. Now that's at the top of my goal. Oh my God, I would love to go there. And she was like, yeah, no, things were back to normal. Like, and you're like, wait, you could buy a ticket to Egypt? Like you were able to do that? Oh yeah. So it seems like but try going to England. You think that's happening? I'm sure you could.
I don't think you can go to Canada.
Yeah, and that's right above us.
Yeah.
So
it's just some countries, everybody's dealing with the pandemic in different ways. So, you know.
Interesting.
But it's still it's still happening. It's not, we're not back to and I don't know how long it'll take to get back to 2019 levels.
I mean, dude, we are at 2022, right?
Basically, yeah.
So at what point do we
Still
go?
2021.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But we're almost there.
But at what point do we go, this is never retracting itself? You know?
Well, I think in one extent, it's good that we don't go back because we don't want this to happen again, right?
That's true. That is true. We don't want this to happen again. Okay. There's two plays going on here. We don't want it to happen again. And we know how dangerous, like again, before I put him in a box of being one of the most evil villains in our story, Bill Gates was telling us for 15 years that like the enemy of the human race is going to be a virus.
Right.
So is it because he knew something? Or is it because that it literally is? I think it's the latter, obviously. Did he play a hand in it? Also, who knows? But I think the biggest hurdle for the human existence is viruses because of our interconnectivity and everything.
Yeah.
But here, we all know of the philosophical theory. If a tree falls in the woods and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a noise? I can tell you, so one of my degrees was philosophy.
Me
After
too.
every person you read, there is an answer. The philosophers have come to an answer that no, it actually doesn't make a sound, that it requires bouncing off of an eardrum to be considered a sound. It makes a sound, but if it isn't registered...
It makes vibrations.
It makes vibrations.
Nobody's there to perceive it.
And if there isn't anybody there to perceive it, in many philosophers' eyes, it isn't considered making a sound. So, a finger of the same hand, I feel like, what's the point of this life if I'm not smiling at a lady at the grocery store and I'm not hugging my friend when I see him?
Well,
and I couldn't hug my grandma who hid from Nazis for 2 years. She just wants a hug. That's all she wants. So,
okay, so I would say, like, in order to preserve the possibility of you smiling in the future, we have to take certain measures to make sure that systematic destruction doesn't happen.
That
Now, are we past that point? Probably,
Boom.
I think.
That's what I was going to say. If that was true,
I think
I would agree.
Yeah. I think if things would have shut down immediately hard for a little while, we'd be out of this a long time ago. But that's not what happened. So I don't know. Like, it's fucking complicated.
It is. But again, you're only going to sort out the weeds if you don't have.
But here, nobody wears masks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we're back to normal here.
But you know what's really bizarre for my brain? Like, this has been a weird thing I've been dealing with for about 7-8 months. I go to work and it is mask Nazi town.
Okay.
You cannot leave your desk because it's a government job.
Yeah.
You are the court.
Yeah.
It's run by a Democrat. So the whole thing is you can't leave your desk without a mask.
Yeah.
And it's very hyperbolic. Someone will, and that's 8 hours. That is my existence for the majority of my day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Then I'm walking into a restaurant last night and I'm like, wait, I don't need my mask.
Yeah.
And so it also is, there's a cognitive play here where there's a conditioning going on that we don't. So if you're working at the restaurant I went to, yeah, you're totally removed. World is back to normal. But for some people, I mean, for doctors, nurses, pharmacists, they oftentimes were wearing it before.
Right.
So even to them, things are back to normal because they still get to go to the grocery store, not wear a mask, but wear it at work. But I think some people, look at I have my friend Doug. For whatever reason, his company has Monday and Friday remote because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But because they just bought this brand new giant building, everybody's still got to come for 3 out of the 5 days a week. It's like, wait. Is COVID dead on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? Or like, no. The reality is you bought this building. You want to make sure you're getting the use out of it, but still keep the charade alive. And
I mean, they're probably not doing the remote for COVID at this point, though. It's probably people just like to do that a couple days a week.
That's what I think, especially on Monday and Friday.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what their stated policy is, but
that's true. It does come down to that. But it is interesting. It does feel like
I would do Tuesday, Thursday remote.
Right?
Yeah.
But you know what? There's something about, like, if you could stay up late and just enjoy the Sunday night football game.
Yeah, but But then it's like, then the point is, we're gonna take it easy Monday. Come on, what are you?
We got to agree though. Productivity is definitely down when you're remote. Same friend goes, "Oh yeah, dude, I just sit there. I've watched The Simpsons 60 seasons through multiple times." I go, "I've never watched a few episodes, let alone the entire series multiple times through," because he just has it running all day. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure you're just as productive as you were when you were in the cubicle.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's a weird place we're in, but do you think... So again, I really like that you made the point. You made the point of once you reach this point, everybody pay your dues. Get your vaccine, wear your mask, play the part. Like I said, those first 2 weeks, we were all on the same team before this became a political game. We're all on the same team.
Yeah.
Let's get through this. The unfortunate part is, how do we know when the point is that we've made? All right, guys, we made it. We could go back to normal. If and when we do reach that point, are the people that received the power going to be willing to give it up? I'm pulling into this place last week to set up for a podcast. I'm listening to Joe Rogan, and he goes, we have to start acknowledging that you have these entities whose only goal is money, increase profits. We have a board of investors we need to keep happy. Profit is our only goal. We had this trajectory. We were doing better. Then the government stepped in, turned everybody off, and forced them to get a vaccine. And you've made more money than you've ever made ever.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. Like, laughably more than you could ever. The fact that everything you turn on the TV is sponsored by Pfizer shows you how much money they got laying around, but also how much they're invested in keeping this going. Why would you ever give that up? Why would you ever go, well, we've quadrupled what we've ever made ever, but, we don't need it anymore, and I love community so much that we're going to let people go back to normal. You would never give that up.
So you're talking about making the vaccine mandatory forever, like every year you need to get a booster.
That. But because, again, when you got that vaccine card...
But is that, like, we've had that for other, like... We get measles, and you can't go to school without certain vaccines,
That's a great point.
So it's just a new vaccine because it's a new virus.
But this is where it gets murky, right? The polio vaccine actually eliminated polio.
Okay.
This thing is experimental. They got emergency use.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what's interesting. When we find out that people are dying from it, but it's still a small amount. And like Joe Rogan said, he's like, all right, so we just had this whole conversation about people dying from vaccines, but we got to acknowledge that there's also 200 million people who are fine.
Yeah.
So,
and there's people still dying of COVID.
Right.
Which are more than the people dying from the vaccine.
But you know what's interesting?
I mean, I'm definitely of the opinion that if you're an adult, a vaccine's a good way to go. Like, you should get the vaccine. I
agree, but I got the vaccine. I don't know where I'm at on the booster. I'm a young kid that exercises.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily. I'll get the sun first. I had COVID.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm in no rush to get a booster. I mean, I just got my shots a few months ago. But.
Oh, okay. Well, so you've still got time to ride that out anyway. But it's just interesting that when it comes to this experimental thing or whatever, why we had a statistic. CNN had a rolling number on their screen of deaths right now.
Yeah.
Because of HIPAA, that graphic is actually a lie. You know it's a lie. It takes like weeks for your death certificate to be processed into a system. So wherever they're getting that information from, even if it was legitimate and legal, it would take a long time.
Right.
You wouldn't have a rolling ticker
Right.
that's showing it's just dead,
You wouldn't be able to have a reliable way to do that.
Right. And then additionally, so we've got this hyperbolic propaganda going.
Yeah.
Then you have...
Which is nothing new. It's just
right.
It's 24/7 now.
Yes.
You know?
And so...
media has always
you're right.
propagandized and blown things out of proportion. But now it's a different business model where you get clicks.
Right. Right. And so alongside this now inescapable, media machine, you have, this is a new thing. We've never been exposed to this before. This is brand new. So you're going to take, we put people on ventilators and found out that was killing them. We were suppressing some drugs and the, experimenting and I don't know the word I'm fishing for, but like the development of different alternatives, we shut those down. It was this way or the highway. And then we have this death toll statistic.
Mm-hmm.
X amount of people died in America because of COVID. And what's really a damn shame, dude, is first off, all these clowns are out here saying, I'll never take Trump's vaccine. And then they get their dead guy in there and it's the same vaccine, but now it's not Trump's vaccine, so I'm going to take it and you should take it.
People making decisions based on their political team is fucking stupid.
It's juvenile. But could we agree that at the moment, whoever's name you want to slap in front of it, thank you, Fauci God. But when they brought it to us, at that moment, don't you think we should start a new death toll? Like, don't you think that it's unfair to keep counting from when we were ignorant and being played? And now that death, because we need that number to make it seem like it's still scary. Because if we talked about post-vaccine, it's laughable. It is laughable. So is it fair that we're still counting from day one and including the massive period of time where there was no vaccine?
I mean, I think if you want to give people a sense of what the danger is, I think like rates per day would comparing. Cool. Okay, the rates per day. How many people are dying per day in America across time? That would give you a better sense of where we're at.
And doesn't it seem like they don't want you to have a better sense of where you're at?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't watch CNN, Fox News, anything. Like, I just don't do that. I'm not super informed about this stuff, but I think that would, and I don't know what that is. Like, in December 2021, how many, what is the daily death rate versus, December 2020? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody does.
Yeah.
And yet we don't have
I'm sure we can look up, we can probably look that up.
You know what's so funny? You are making me confront, it's a human flaw, but it's a flaw that I divert to probably too often. And now that I'm conscious of it, it's an exercise to combat it. But it is funny when you go, for me, it's a knee-jerk reaction of because I don't have this information, it's being withheld or it's being camouflaged. And the reality is you're just lazy and you didn't Google it or seek it out.
I think people would respect these huge media outlets a lot more if they did present that sort of information in a very clear and practical sort of way instead of an alarmist sort of way. Wow. I mean, that's why I don't watch that stuff, you can't.
And
the fact of the matter is, I work from home. It's it doesn't really affect me. Like
you're living life.
I went to Puerto Rico a couple weeks ago, and there they were very serious about wearing masks and this and that. Yeah.
How was that? How long were you in Puerto Rico? Jeez.
I was just there for a weekend visiting some friends from college.
That's awesome.
But there it's like you can't walk. You need to show your vaccine card. I've never shown my vaccine card here in Ohio.
I had to do it once for the Browns draft.
Okay.
That was it.
Yeah,
and that's the only reason I got the vaccine, if I'm being totally honest. Yeah,
sure,
I couldn't miss the Browns draft.
Like not once in Ohio have I shown a vaccine card, but in Puerto Rico you had to get into restaurants, to get
I had to
into
do it
bars.
actually for the 21 Pilots concert a couple weeks ago too.
Okay. Yeah.
So
like
major gatherings.
Like super spreader potential events.
But not a Browns game.
Yeah,
they just let the corral in. And what's so funny is they do have, like, you know, the stickers on the ground and all this stuff in the stadium, but it is the same as it's been for 20 years. Waiting outside that stadium, it is just cow corral.
And I think that probably makes it seem like, okay, there's not a united front here, right? So it's like I mean, I think if there was a united front from the beginning, this would be over, but there wasn't, you know? So I don't know. It makes it a lot more likely that it's going to keep going on and on and on and on, which nobody wants.
You're so right.
Yeah.
You're so right. Man, I so badly wanted to steer us away from the pessimistic track, but it's the track we're on. Yeah. So talk to your friends and your neighbors. Have the conversations at Thanksgiving that you don't want to have. Tommy, I sincerely appreciate your time.
My pleasure,
would love
man.
to have you on again.
Yeah, sure.
Keep making us laugh and teaching us things. And
All right,
I'm going to love cheering you on your journey, brother. So, gentlemen, everybody, thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. If you want to support, if we made you laugh or we made you think, to support the podcast, the best thing you could do is share this episode. Post it on your Facebook, share the link, whatever you can do. But the best thing you can do to support us is share this episode. But go ahead, smash that subscribe button, like it, and comment. Comment what you think we could do to bridge this gap, because that's going to help us with the algorithm. You can catch all our content at our website, www.rethinktankpodcast.com. Join the Neuro Gym there, the social media alternative where you can have a good conversation. And we'll catch you next time. So, Tommy, thank you again, brother.
Thanks, man.
I look forward to getting you on here again. Everybody, see you later. Peace.